I'm Caroline Maguire, and I'm here to host this mental health Q&A. So one of the questions is, what specific challenges do individuals with ADHD and neurodiversity face in social emotional learning, and how can educators and caregivers best support them? So neurodiverse individuals often face the challenge of being lonely and not having the support they need to make real social connection and to learn those social emotional skills. Neurodiverse individuals hear more negative messages and are called out for behaviors more than their peers. But correction doesn't build connection and it doesn't build skills. So our neurology affects the way we see the world, and often strategies need to be geared toward our neurology so that we can engage in social emotional learning. So I think there's some key strategies in promoting mental health, and one of them is to make sure that you have a strong staff that knows about neurodiversity, lots of peer education, and to have the actual knowledge of how our brain works and how we learn. Because otherwise, I think it's very difficult for individuals to learn those strategies. And I think some key strategies in promoting mental health to neurodiverse individuals in educational settings is one, positive comments. So knowing that we hear more negative comments, having sort of a 2-to-1 ratio where we are highlighting the positive differences of people, the positive accomplishments of neurodiverse individuals, to sort of say, listen, neurodiverse individuals are the people who become scientists, artists, creators, who give us these amazing things that happen in the world, and to highlight that every day. We know that it's important to give time and space for connection. There was an 85-year Harvard happiness study that showed that the one key to happiness is connection. And so encouraging connection with club programs, niche activities, have an impact on mental health and well-being. Less homework, right? Give kids the space and time to do these things, and allow kids to be with compatible other kids across grades. It's been shown that one caring adult can help encourage that. Sometimes kids don't listen to their parents, to encourage those kids to join those programs and to make those connections, and to be sure that every child has one friend in class. Often I'm told that this is very difficult, but magically I also have made it happen in hundreds of situations. So I think it's really important to help to promote and make sure that kids have the opportunity for that connection. The other strategy I love to teach people is what I call a communisplation. And what that is where a person learns to communicate their needs and their desires and their neurodiverse traits, and they don't even have to name a diagnosis. They can just say, I'm a person who needs a little more time with this. I'm a person who needs a minute to process this information. And teaching kids to really explain what they need and to express things is another key strategy for those of us who are neurodiverse, because we are probably going to have to explain to people. And once people understand and we have that perspective taking, people are really supportive. And I think that's, on the whole. And so I think that that's really important to empower kids with that. How do you approach teaching social skills to children and adolescents with ADHD, and I would add adults as well, or other neurodiverse conditions to help them thrive academically and socially is another question. My approach is very different because I am all about the how, and I'm all about breaking things into steps. Lots of people talk about reading the room, for instance, but they don't provide a step-by-step guide. I also don't ask neurodiverse people to change who they are and to mask. Our brain affects the way we see the world, and it's so important to understand ourselves. We need strategies that align with our unique neurology. And for instance, we might still stim, we might still struggle with certain things. We might still need some sensory strategies, and not to ask people to banish that, but to work with your brain. My goal is to help people of all ages learn those key skills and have the choices. And sometimes they may not want to participate, but then they have the choices and that they can make those choices. We learn to do friendship differently and to belong and to create connection and understand our neurology. And so that is key because, for instance, with ADHD, interest is key. So we need compensatory strategies that help us shape our environment, and to shape our environment to keep us interested, engaged, and present. And so I really work with people and curate for them what they need, and trying to empower folks so that they understand their own brain. And that knowledge goes so far. But ultimately, I'm all about the how. How do you do this? And to sort of help people decode the social world. Can you share some insights into the intersectionality of ADHD, neurodiversity, and mental health, particularly in the context of fostering resilience and coping skills? Resilience is one of my favorite topics. Resilience research shows that one caring adult in your life who teaches you skills so you learn to handle challenges and you can pick yourself up is essential. So people aren't just like naturally resilient. That's actually a misnomer. Whenever you look at resilience, and maybe you're going to look at this in yourself or someone you know, they actually have a caring adult in their life who teaches them things. So having the belief that you can handle a situation is part of why people have resilience. So positive self-talk is also linked to resilience. So going back, neurodiverse children hear more negative messages, almost 20,000 more negative messages than their peers, which affects confidence and ultimately the ability to handle your problems, pick yourself up, and have grit. So to foster coping skills, we must teach the skills, having one caring adult, and teach those resilient skills and teach people to problem solve. And it requires the capacity to believe in yourself. So the more we actually teach people those skills and have that one caring adult in their life, that research shows, and I have found personally, that we get much more resilient individuals who can cope with stress, problem solve, identify emotions, make good decisions. In your experience, what role do peer relationships play in social emotional development of children with ADHD or neurodiversity? And how do these relationships, how can they be nurtured effectively? So peer relationships are key. And if you think about what you want out of life, we all want to feel we belong. One study showed that teenagers want what they want out of their stage of life is to feel they belong in their community and their home. And when people don't have that, they feel a lot of loneliness. In my book, Why Will No One Play With Me, I talked about the play paradox. If you have play with peers and social interactions, that's how we learn social emotional skills. And we learn through reciprocity and direct instruction. And because kids who are neurodiverse often don't have playmates and aren't asked to play, they're not able to have some of those key social milestones that having a group of friends provides. So if we have to have play with younger kids, cousins, practice more direct instructions, then we can help kids have those positive peer relationships, because it's absolutely essential. So there's this inherent paradox. If you don't play, you don't learn. If you're not asked to play, then your skills are lagging. And so what we need to do is boost kids' skills up by giving them opportunities to practice. And we have to expand our thoughts around who they can practice with until we build those skills so that then they can go out on their own more and find people who are like them, who they want to be friends with, and have those peer connections. So it's absolutely important. As we observe Mental Health Awareness Month, what are some misconceptions or stigmas around ADHD and neurodiversity that you believe are important to address? And this is so important. There's so much shame around the use of medication and accommodations and the belief that bad parenting is the cause of ADHD rather than the neurobiological causes that are in fact true. And I think many people do not seek diagnosis and help and because of the fear of the ADHD label and the stigma. And unfortunately, just thinking your child has these ADHD traits and believing you know it doesn't unlock the strategies and school supports that are a unique approach that we need to overcome challenges. So it's really important to, talk about that shame and to help people overcome that shame. And I think part of that is that it's important for us not to comment and stigmatize and comment on parenting, because when we do, we actually create this vicious cycle where people aren't getting the help that they need. And I think that help is absolutely essential. And so I would ask everyone, just as you see people in public, you don't know what's going on. We all have our own challenges. We're all dealing with our own stuff. And the more we can stop commenting and stop shaming, the more people will access those diagnoses and those mental health services that make a huge difference in your life. How can educators and parents create inclusive environments to celebrate neurodiversity while providing appropriate support for social emotional learning? Oh my gosh, this is so great, because peer sensitivity training is one of the best ways to support inclusive environments. As a matter of fact, peer sensitivity training is actually proven to be helpful with bullying, more so than a lot of the bullying education programs. And I even have ways where teachers with no prep and educational environments can provide inclusive opportunities for kids to navigate toward their people and help left out kids find their people. And I'm of course happy to share that with anyone at schools who is trying to create a more inclusive environment. Celebrating and bringing strengths into the curriculum is also key. To mention and talk about ways in which neurodiversity and individuals contribute and have these unique gifts, and the fact that our unique way of looking at the world and our traits are actually what make these gifts happen. And so we wouldn't have someone, decoding the Enigma machine in World War II or building great scientific discoveries or creating great art if they didn't have these neurodiverse traits. And to bring that into the daily conversation in the classroom and in the institutions, and to understand that these strengths come with these other traits is incredibly important. And so this peer sensitivity training, I think, is an essential piece in helping us all move forward. What are some practical strategies or interventions that educators can implement to accommodate the diverse social emotional needs of students with ADHD or neurodiversity? Research shows that if children or teens feel accepted and feel they have their niche of friends, they feel belonging. Even if their social skills aren't the best, they feel good about their place in the world, and it affects their well-being throughout their lifetime. So having a strong club program, mentor programs, nudging students who might feel marginalized to find their people and to go to these programs. Often teens and kids won't listen to their parents, so one caring adult, a teacher or an educator, can make a huge difference here. Talking about strengths and allowing students to have those opportunities can really be key. And not everybody likes the same thing, so it's not just about sports, it's about these more niche activities like Dungeons and Dragons, like robotics, that really not only foster life skills, but they also foster a community and opportunity for people whose brains are a little different. Given the challenges of remote or hybrid learning, what advice do you have for supporting the social emotional well-being of neurodiverse students in these educational settings? First, I think it's really important to have the right strategies, the diagnosis, and to understand your neurology and the possible supports you can access and that you need. Environment has a profound effect on neurodivergent learners, and there have been studies that show that in some environments we thrive and in others our symptoms have become much worse. And so I think it's really, really important that when we're looking at these different things, we allow people the accommodation of not necessarily being in a hybrid or remote learning situation if that doesn't work for them. There's no one size fits all. So some neurodiverse people do great in those environments and others do not. And I think the challenge here is to make sure that accessing different environments is not an uphill battle and that people are given the opportunity to ask for them and to have those different choices. And those challenges are very real and can really impact learning. Looking ahead, what trends or advancements do you anticipate in the field of social emotional learning and mental health support for individuals with ADHD and neurodiversity? I think we have come together as a neurodivergent community. The internet has been a huge, huge piece of this, where we've come together as a community to support each other and seek answers and seek better access to mental health. And more institutions and schools and businesses are educating their populations and trying to embrace neurodivergence. And I would say this, all institutions, businesses, everyone needs to educate from the top down so that people who are line managers, middle managers, people who maybe don't understand neurodiversity and can have that education and understand the traits and the real challenges and the accommodations and needs of the population, because intentions don't always flow through the organization is one of the things that I find. And so I'm hoping that this trend of saying to people, hey, we want to have more neurodiversity, that businesses and institutions getting out there and having this positive outlook will also flow into them actually having more training so that people understand the inherent paradox of things like ADHD, where when we're interested, we can do amazing things, but because of our neurology, we may struggle with deadlines and we may need accommodations. And there's just these inherent things that don't always make sense unless you have a deep understanding of neurodiversity. And I think the trend really is to start embracing neurodiversity. And I think the pandemic taught us that social emotional learning is essential. We are for sure in the middle of a major mental health crisis. We know from the Harvard study, the 85-year Harvard happiness study, that there's one cure, which is connection. And so the more we can provide education and the more we can provide opportunities for people to address mental health issues, get the support that they need, and find that connection, literally, we know this will impact our well-being. So that's what I'm all about. That's what I'm here to do, is to help people with this social emotional skills and of all ages so that we can have that connection that literally changes our lives. Thank you so much. I'm Caroline Maguire.